Sporting events aren't always about fun, competition, and celebration on the winner's side. Sometimes they turn into a mourning crowd. Throughout history, there have been several such incidents where cheers turned into cries. In this video, we'll tell you about the sporting events that ended in the tragic deaths of athletes. To start with, let's talk about the entire soccer team that got killed. The incident is famous to date, and even now, it goes viral now and then. In October 1998, an unbelievable thing happened in the African nation of Congo. A village named Benetashadi hosted a soccer match against another village called Basangana. Both villages are in the south-central Congolese province of Eastern Kasai. Anyway, the game began like any other normal game would. However, the two teams tied at 1-1. While the teams were still on the ground, a massive lightning bolt hit the field, killing the entire soccer team of the village of Benetashadi. Not just that, over 30 people got injured, but the dying ones were only from the team. It's also important to mention here that to date, there has been no other incident involving the death of an entire team like this. What surprised everyone the most was that only the members of one team were killed, while the Basangana's team was merely injured. The only explanation that everyone has come up with so far is that this incident was the byproduct of witchcraft. Most African nations pray to deities, and witchcraft is a common practice among them. This was why they were bound to think that way. However, from what we know, lightning hitting football or soccer fields isn't something rare, but the only thing that makes us want to believe that it might be witchcraft is that only one team got killed, and the others were totally fine. Next up, the tragic on-field death of Chuck Hughes. Chuck was one of the best players in the history of the NFL, but no one knew that his death would arrive when he was in the middle of a game. On the 24th of October 1971, the Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears came face-to-face for a match at Tiger Stadium. Everything was going like any other game would have been, but things changed late in the fourth quarter. Hughes was running to the huddle, and suddenly he collapsed. Everyone was shocked and worried. Both teams' doctors and trainers ran to him, hoping to save his life. But death had arrived. He was later pronounced dead. At the time of his death, Hughes was only 28, but doctors revealed he was suffering from advanced arteriosclerosis. One of his arteries was blocked. His condition went undiagnosed and caused his untimely death. After he was sent to the hospital, the game continued, but now the crowd was silent and in shock. And soon, the officials broke the news of his death to his teammates. We think this was the saddest, most hurtful NFL match anyone ever saw. Up next, the death of Nader Kamaratashvili. During the 2010 Winter Olympics, the International Olympic Committee was criticized over their decision to make games like snowboarding and ski cross more dramatic and dangerous. Apparently, they also used some technology to increase the speeds, and it was reported that Joseph Fent, the then president of the ILF, was concerned about the Whistling Slider Center track and the risk of serious injuries. This was the same track where bobsled, skeleton, and luge teams would have to compete. There had already been several accidents, and athletes had gotten injured, which clearly meant that the track was way too fast, but no one was bothered enough to check the track. One competitor was the luger, Nader Kamaratashvili, who dreamed of dethroning Zugalair. He had been competing in the luge since he was 14, and according to his father, he had never gotten injured. His father, who was also an experienced luger, advised keeping it slow. However, Nader told him he came to the Olympics to win, and would either win or die. On February 10th, when he rolled down the track on his back, he crashed but kept practicing, and when he launched his fifth practice run, things went wrong. At the banked end of Thunderbird's turn, his luge slid downward. He hit a wall and fell over the track. Reports state that he sustained massive head and torso injuries and was pronounced dead soon after. Following up, let's have a look at Lane Frost and his last ride. It's a known fact that bull riding is one of the most dangerous sports ever. Reports suggest that there are at least 20 catastrophic injuries for every 100,000 riders. Something similar happened with Lane Frost. Lane Frost was born into a family where bull riding was considered a custom. He was the son of a calf roper, and it was reported that Lane's parents always tried to keep him away from the horrors of bull riding. But the boy had been in love with the sport since childhood. His love for the sport got him into the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association at 19, and he was one of the favorites on the circuit. In 1989, he was a part of the Cheyenne Frontier Days, which used to be the oldest and largest rodeo in the world. But the last day of the event became the death of Lane. Everything went well until the end, Lane was off of the bull, but then the bull turned and drove one of his horns into his back. Usually, riders only get a bruise or a bit of serious injury from such incidents, but it gets better. But in Lane's case, the bull broke some of his ribs. Not just that, doctors also revealed that one of his major arteries had punctured. After getting hit by the bull, he got up and walked a few steps, but then he fell into the mud and his soul left his body within a few minutes. Another one was Kim Duk-koo. Boxing has always been an extremely violent sport. It's common for players to get serious injuries, but sometimes these injuries can kill a person as well. One such boxer was Kim Duk-koo. In November 1982, Kim and Ray Mancini came face to face for a bout. Kim dominated the game for the earlier rounds, and Mancini even considered quitting briefly. However, he didn't and just continued. In the latter rounds, it was Ray's turn to be dominant, and he landed a lot more punches on his opponent than he had received in the first round. During the 14th round, Mancini hit Kim with a right, and then again with another hard right hand. This time, Kim fell back and hit his head on the canvas. Referee Richard Green had to stop the fight and declared Mancini the winner. Just a few minutes after the fight ended, Kim collapsed and went into a coma. There was blood in his skull, and emergency brain surgery was performed. However, the boxer died 5 days after the fight. The doctors revealed Kim died because of one punch. The saddest part about his death was that just 3 months after the incident, Kim's mother drank a bottle of pesticide and killed herself. Not just that, Green, the referee that bout, also committed suicide by self-inflicted gunshot. Mancini blamed himself for this for a long time, but he had to live with it. Last, let's remember the tragic death of Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna, the famous Brazilian F1 driver, had a short-lived career. On May 1st, 1994, Senna died after his race car crashed into a concrete barrier. At the time, he was leading the San Marino Grand Prix at the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari in Italy. It's also important to mention here that just a day before Senna's death, the Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger had also died when his car crashed during the qualification round. These two crashes were considered the worst among the many other accidents in that Grand Prix that weekend. Reports say that the F1 driver was immediately airlifted and rushed to the hospital. However, he suffered significant blood loss and was declared dead. Senna's death became a turning point in F1 safety in the circuit. Additional safety measures were implemented, and even today, they follow those rules. Later, the Supreme Court of Cassation of Italy ruled that mechanical failure caused Senna's death. For his Brazilian fans, his death was a national tragedy, and the Brazilian government declared 3 days of national mourning. The Brazilian government made an exemption and allowed them to fly the late F1 driver back home in a passenger cabin accompanied by his brother Leonardo and some close friends. His funeral was broadcasted live in Brazil, and his fans still mourn his death. Not just that, on the day he passed away, the TV networks in Brazil spent the day announcing his death and replaying the last interview that he gave on the same day of his death. The love his country had for him was clear when the Brazilian football team dedicated their 1994 FIFA World Cup to the late F1 driver. And with this, it's time for us to wrap this up, fam. What do you think about this video? Let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back soon with more amazing videos. See you in the next one.